Tonight, Sam Bankman-Fried spending another night on remand following another chaotic day in court. We've got the latest. Prime Minister Davis is in Cuba preparing to meet with the Cuban president. Motorists, prepare yourselves. The road works on Village Road are not done just yet. Hear the latest from the contractor. And then in our news at 7:30, Bahamas gets ready to welcome a full house for the holidays. Our news live at 7 starts now. Welcome to our news live at 7. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Kendino Knowles. Former FTX CEO Sam Bankman-Fried signing extradition papers and is now getting set to return to the United States to face charges. Commissioner of Corrections Don Clare confirming as much to our news this afternoon, adding that he will be extradited tomorrow. We can also tell you that those signed papers are now with the courts. The former crypto billionaire will face charges of conspiracy to commit wire fraud, commodities fraud, securities fraud, and money laundering. He faces up to 115 years in prison. Bankman-Fried has been held in the medical ward of the Bahamas Department of Corrections after he was denied bail in court last week. At the time, he told the chief magistrate he wanted to fight his extradition. He is set to return to court tomorrow at 11 a.m. This latest news follows another day of court turmoil in the embattled CEO's extradition case. Bethany McDermott has the details.
It was another confusing day at the magistrate's court as local and international media gathered amid talks that former FTX CEO Sam Bankman-Fried would return to court today. But that didn't happen. His attorney, Jerome Roberts, told other news media that his client has agreed to be extradited to the United States. In court Monday, Bankman-Fried was expected to waive his right to extradition, but his attorney expressed shock to learn that his client was in court and not still behind bars. This after he told Chief Magistrate Joyanne Ferguson Pratt that he would fight extradition to the U.S. While at court today, officials from the U.S. Embassy and attorneys for the former crypto billionaire all went to court, but the court never convened. Embassy officials soon left, followed by his attorneys a few minutes later. We sought to get an update from the lead attorney.
Mr. Roberts, any comments from you today? You spoke to some other press yesterday. Can you tell us what the next steps are?
Should we say Merry Christmas or will we see you again?
In an indictment, prosecutors from the Southern District of New York alleged that Bankman-Fried conspired with others to commit wire fraud, commodities fraud, securities fraud, and money laundering. He faces up to 115 years in prison. The Securities Commission of the Bahamas froze FTX's assets in the Bahamas and moved to put the company into liquidation. The U.S. entities are engaged in Chapter 11 bankruptcy in the United States. Bankman-Fried returns to court 11 a.m. Wednesday. Reporting for Our News, I'm Bethany McDermott.
Well, the arrest and subsequent court hearings of former FTX CEO Sam Bankman-Fried has drawn a lot of interest from the international press, with nearly a dozen media teams descending on New Providence just to cover the international case. Maria Alejandra Cardona, a video journalist with Reuters, is stationed in Miami.
It was really easy. The minute he got arrested, it was, Maria, can you go to the Bahamas?
There's a different court system here. It's a slightly different pace of doing things. So people are, I think, getting used to that. You know, usually you say there's going to be a court hearing at 10 a.m. and people expect, oh, it'll be at 10 and over at 10:15 and we'll have a decision. And so, you know, anytime you report from a different country, you kind of have to change your mentality a little bit. You kind of have to learn the way things are done there. And so that's really no different here.
All right, we'll have more on that angle coming up in our news at 7:30. A Supreme Court judge has granted $30,000 bail to a policeman accused of murder or a murder conspiracy. Prosecutors say 47-year-old Corporal Darren Davis plotted the murder of 43-year-old Jason Whitfield along with his cousin Stephon Davis on December 2nd. The following day, Whitfield, a senior clerk at the passport office, was found shot dead inside his government-issued car in Garden Hills. The cousins were formally charged with the murder plot on December 12th and remanded into custody. Justice Renee McKay approved Davis's release on bail today. His co-accused has also applied for bail. His hearing is set for Wednesday. Police have not charged anyone else with Whitfield's murder. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Philip Davis is in Cuba. After getting a formal invite from that country's government, Davis, who traveled to the communist nation on Monday, will meet with Cuban President Manuel Marrero and is scheduled to meet with a number of senior government officials, including the Minister of Science and Education. Discussions are set to center on education, healthcare, tourism, national security, agriculture, and sports. The Prime Minister is also expected to express his thanks to the Cuban government for their assistance during the latter stages of the COVID-19 pandemic. Deputy Prime Minister Chester Cooper will serve as acting Prime Minister until the Prime Minister's return on December 21st. And speaking of the acting Prime Minister, one day after he announced the groundbreaking for a new Grand Bahama International Airport early next year, residents there are reacting. Marlena Leonard has this.
I am excited because, you know, the more we have tourists coming here, the more persons will be affected and the economy will start to move again. And, you know, once the economy is moving, crime will go down, persons will be able to travel more, go on vacation. So, you know, it's a win-win for everyone. So I'm excited. I can't wait.
That's Grand Bahama resident Lisa Higgs sharing her excitement for the potential progress. Her comments came after acting Prime Minister Chester Cooper offered a hopeful update for Grand Bahamians awaiting progress on the redevelopment of the airport. Cooper says the plan is for groundbreaking for construction to begin in the first quarter of 2023. Christine Major runs a restaurant in the Bazaar. She feels the progress is long overdue.
It's about time because we need an airport, a real airport, okay? So it's better for tourism. People coming in and the hotels or whatever, because where it's not, we don't have no airport like that. So the hotels can't make no money. People didn't know airport to come through, say, bring in tourists. So we have one like, say, what we have in Nassau, then we'd be saying something.
But not everyone is so hopeful. Taxi driver Lloyd Miller tells us he has grown tired of promises and just wants to see action.
I'm tired of it. I'm sick of it. I'm tired of their promises it wouldn't happen. Same thing with the hotel, Alukaya. Nothing has happened. They say it's sold and yeah, not sold, blah, blah, blah. See, so, who are they trying to fool? Themselves? Yes, I'm sick of it. The time to see some action. Stop talking, let me see some action. Groundbreaking? Yes, instead of going up. It's time. It's the high time. They've been in the office over a year now. Let's see some action. You agree?
Reporting for Our News, I'm Marlena Leonard.
Thanks, Marlena. Well, we've got a lot more to get to just in a moment, but for now we head over to meteorologist Greg Thompson, who is standing by in the Weather Center with your latest look at temperatures across the islands. Greg?
Thanks, Candino, and happy Tuesday evening, everybody. It is beginning to feel a lot like Christmas right now, temperature-wise. Minus the clouds, minus the showers, and we are going to see an increase in that later on tonight. But it's 77 degrees outside our studios right now with cloudy skies. Your winds are still blowing out there, out of the east at 15 miles per hour, and your feels-like temperature very cool and comfortable, 74 degrees. Temperatures around the islands right now in the northwest Bahamas, it's 71 in Freeport with a few showers around. Also in Marshall, we have 74, some showers there as well. 77 in Allenstown, Bimini, 79 in Great Harbour Key. Over in Nicholstown, Andros, we are at 77 there. 72 in Governor's Harbour. Into the central Bahamas, 76 Kemps Bay. We pick up 78 in Arthurstown, Cat Island. 80 over in Coburn Townsend's, 80 over in Coburn Townsend, Salvador, 82 in Georgetown, with some isolated showers nearby. Deadman's Key, you are at 79 in the southeast Bahamas, 77 in Colonel Hill, Crooked Island, 82 in Duncantown, Ragged Island. We pick up a pair of 80s in Delectable Bay, Acklands, and in Abrahams Bay. Matthew Down in Agua, 78 in sweet neighbors to the southeast, Turks and Caicos Islands, you are 79 at this hour. Satellite-wise, we are watching a low-pressure system that's generating quite a bit of unsettled weather across the eastern Gulf of Mexico. That shower activity is now beginning to spread across the Florida area, and that will continue to progress towards the east. This low-pressure system will eventually move across the northwest Bahamas by tomorrow, so we're looking at some significant weather with this system. Lots of showers, lots of thunderstorm activity expected. Some of those showers will be locally heavy, so we're looking at the possibility for some flooding as well, and those thunderstorms could be strong to severe, so do keep a mind for that. Boaters and residents in the northwest Bahamas, we're asking you to continue to monitor the system as it continues to track towards the east, but that will eventually move out by tomorrow night, and a very strong cold front expected to cross our area sometime into Friday, and that one will usher in a nice change in the weather, and it will begin to feel like Christmas during that time frame. That's your first look at weather. Stick with us. A look at your extended forecast is still to come.
Still to come in our news, almost 1 year later, and the road works on Village Road still going on. Find out the new completion date. Royal Caribbean helps to make the holidays merry and bright with a tasty donation. The boys are back in town. The Valley Boys putting the competition on notice for the upcoming Boxing Day Junkanoo Parade. It's all coming up when Our News returns. The contractor behind the Village Road Improvement Project announcing a new date for its completion. The project was initially slated to be finished by this month, but was pushed back. Emil Knoll says his workers will be pushing to make it happen.
We are committed to working through the holidays. My guys have all agreed to work through the holidays to try to get that done before and within the first week of January of the new year.
The project, which began in January, is supposed to rehabilitate the area through upgrades to various utilities buried on Village Road between St. Andrews Drive and Montague Beach. Knowles giving this timeline for outstanding work.
We won't actually commence paving until the first week in January, but the section from Montague Beach to Harmony Hill is virtually complete in terms of all of the infrastructure. Or I should say the underground infrastructure. What we're doing now is a pressure test to make sure that the water lines are holding, and then we'll connect all of the businesses and residents in that section.
Now to the festive season, as thousands of Bahamians will have more on their holiday table this year, thanks to a generous donation from Royal Caribbean International. Jamila Mizik explains.
This Christmas Day, 20,000 pounds of fresh bone-in hams and chicken will reach homes across the Bahamas as Royal Caribbean International made the mega donation to the Bahamas Feeding Network today. BFN Chairman Felix Stubbs says the organization is faced with the daily task of providing up to 100,000 meals per month by supporting over 100 feeding programs, which is why this donation will go a long way.
Their contributions have been significant, and as they've done in the past, again this year they're making a significant contribution here at Christmas time to assist in the feeding of many Bahamians who ordinarily would not have had a proper meal this time of the year.
Government Relations Vice President for Royal Caribbean Group, Russell Benford, says giving back to the feeding network is something they look forward to.
I think we started 5 years ago, with our president and CEO actually packaging meals at Mosef House, and that was really the start of the relationship. And then as the feeding network has grown, our relationship has grown and deepened. And just like everybody else around the holidays, we want to provide a gift as a way to say that we care.
State Minister for Social Services and Urban Development Lisa Ramming also thanking Royal Caribbean for their contribution, as she says the government cannot meet the needs of people alone.
During this Christmas season, I would applaud you to somewhat be more conservative on how you indulge in what you eat and what you spend. And that's important this season. And look out for your neighbor. Look out for the person who has less than you.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Jamila Mizik.
When Our News comes back from the break, we turn our spotlight to stories making headlines across the world as China's COVID-19 troubles worsen. The Valley Boys get set to return to Bay Street as they celebrate 65 years of Junkanoo bliss. And our Return to Bay series continues tonight with the mighty Redland Soldiers. The B category group says they are ready for war. The details when Our News returns. This is our news. Welcome back. We turn our attention now to stories making headlines across the world. The Taliban has announced the closure of universities for women in Afghanistan with immediate effect. According to a letter by the higher education minister, the move is until further notice and restricts women's access to formal education as they were already excluded from most secondary schools. After the Taliban takeover last year, universities introduced gender-segregated classrooms and entrances. Female students could only be taught by women professors or old men. The United States responding to the latest ban today, saying it will bring measures. Suspense mounting at the U.S. border with Mexico on Tuesday about the future of Title 42, which places restrictions on asylum seekers. This as the Supreme Court issued a temporary order to keep it in place. Conservative-leaning states arguing in a last-ditch appeal to the Supreme Court that an increased number of migrants would take a toll on public services and warned of unprecedented calamity at the southern border.
Please soften the hearts of President Joe Biden. Let us cross into the United States. We've suffered a lot. We've suffered a lot since we left Venezuela. We went through the jungle. All those countries we've been through.
Several local governments in China encouraged people with mild cases of COVID-19 to go to work this week. The country facing difficulty as its rollback of virus contaminant measures sets off a wave of infections and a growing number of deaths. Health authorities reported Tuesday that 5 people died in the latest 24-hour period, all in Beijing, fueling concern that the toll could rise sharply after the lifting of most zero-COVID restrictions. The official toll likely understates the actual number, and it's unclear how the unleashing of the virus will play out in China and whether the healthcare system can handle a surge in cases nationwide. Peru's Congress is set to consider holding early elections amid deadly nationwide unrest since lawmakers ousted President Pedro Castillo. It's the second time in days that lawmakers were expected to take up the proposal to move forward the 2026 presidential and congressional elections to next year. The first early elections proposal failed to muster enough votes last week after leftist lawmakers abstained, conditioning their support on the promise of a constitutional overhaul. And Jamaica's opposition People's National Party urging government to protect public sector contract workers by ensuring they are treated equitably in the new compensation system. Opposition spokesperson on Finance and Public Service Julian Robinson noting in a statement on Tuesday, a new compensation system by the Ministry of Finance will see some contract workers in a worse position than their colleagues, calling the practice discriminatory and unfair. The opposition also noting with just days left before Christmas, many public sector workers still have not received their salaries, urging government to do better. Still to come in our news, today in history, find out interesting facts about the day that was December 20th. A trip inside the shack of the Redland soldiers as they prepare to do battle on Bay this Boxing morning. And then in our news at 7:30, booked and ready, Bahamas gets set to welcome a hotel full of holiday revelers. It's all coming up when our news returns. Welcome back to our news. It's time now to turn our spotlight on events that shaped the day that was December 20th. On this day in Bahamian history in 1972, the constitutional talks, which began in London on Then on December 20th, 2016, Charlene Lynette Cartwright Robinson was sworn in as Premier of the Turks and Caicos Islands. She was born on September 4th, 1971, to Turks and Caicos Islander parents who were working in the country at the time she was a Bahamian-born citizen. Following Following changes to the Turks and Caicos Islands Constitution, she gave up her Bahamian citizenship in order to run for public office. On December 15, 2016, general elections were held in the territory, and her party, the People's Democratic Movement, PDM, won the majority of seats in the House of Assembly. She became the first democratically elected leader in Turks and Caicos Islands. All right, and now in our Road to Bay series, the Valley Boys say they are primed and ready to claim the Junkanoo Parade crowns as their own this go-around. The group unveiling plans for the Boxing and New Year's Day parades. Public Relations Officer Kishleen Smith painting a picture of what residents can expect to see and hear.
What you will see coming Boxing Day and New Year's Day, you will see a kaleidoscope of colors. Colors you haven't seen in a while. Beautiful, fantastic, magnificent colors. You will hear the melodious music of our backline. You will feel the pulsating beat of those drums. You will hear the color of those bells. And more importantly, the melody will come from our brass section. You will see our choreographed dances in a way you've never seen choreography before. And guess what else? Our front line? Oh my goodness, listen. Y'all say it over? All we need to do is line up.
Well, the group is celebrating its 65th anniversary in the coming year, and group chairman Brian Adderley says they are continuously influenced and inspired by the work and attitude of the late legendary Winston Gus Cooper.
We have a saying in the Valley Boys, when two or more Valley Boys are gathered, the presence of our late leader, Mr. Winston Gus Cooper, is always present. Gus was a mentor to all of us, and he instilled some core values in us that we continue to use today. And so early on, the Valley Boys established a motto called Dedicated to the Pursuit of Excellence. And so it means that each day, each time we enter the shacks, each time we go to practice, each time we come to Bay Street, we have to be better than we were the previous time.
All right, and after nearly 3 decades in the Junkanoo world and a 2-year hiatus, the Redland Soldiers are ready. Jamila Mizik tells us they hope to carry home both titles.
The Redland Soldiers are back, and they say they're ready for war.
Man, it's an exciting time. There's something we was dying for a long time. And this is what we're all about, you know, Junkanoo.
And when it comes to the final showdown, the underdogs say the other groups better bring their A-game.
They're plenty trouble. You know, we've been preparing for a long time. You know, this break, y'all. This could be a new beginning. You know, it's not going to be business as usual. Don't think it's the same day in office. When you go there and scramble around and get away, you know, anything happens now. You know, we have something special for the whole of the Bahamas to see, from Grand Bahama to Inagua.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Jamila Mizik.
All right, thanks for that, Jamila. And remember, you can catch live coverage of this year's Boxing Day Parade right here on RTV beginning at midnight. That's going to do it for us in News at 7. Joining us now is Atalia Hall. She's got the latest headlines. Atalia?
Yes, Ken, we are certainly glad to have you back. How does it feel?
It's good to see you, too.
How does
it's
it
good
feel
to see you. I
be
had some
back?
time off, so, you know, I was able to get some rest.
You deserved it.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I want to know, have you decided yet who you're going to support? I mean, the Valley Boys, I think they put out a really...
Let's not go there.
They put out a really good reason, kaleidoscope of colors and melodious music. So maybe Valley Boys. Maybe Valley Boys.
Anyway,
I won't trick you.
We've got much more to get to, including the latest in the Sam Bankman-Fried extradition case. Tonight on Our News Live at 7:30, the FTX saga draws the eyes of the world to the Bahamas. Find out who's here telling the story. Book for the holidays. Bahama prepares to welcome a full house. A leading pediatrician advises parents to get your kids vaccinated now. And later, the challenges of being a Bahamian woman in business. Our News Live at 7:30 starts in a moment.
Welcome to our news and thank you for joining us. I'm Italia Hall. Former FTX CEO Sam Bankman-Fried signing extradition papers, getting set to return to the United States to face charges. Commissioner of Corrections Don Clare confirming as much to our news this afternoon, adding that he will be extradited tomorrow. We can also tell you that those signed papers are with the courts. The former crypto billionaire will face charges of conspiracy to commit wire fraud, commodities fraud, securities fraud, and money laundering. He faces up to 115 years in prison. Bankman-Fried has been held in the medical ward at the Bahamas Department of Corrections after he was denied bail in court last week. At the time, he told the chief magistrate he wanted to fight this extradition. He's set to return to court tomorrow at 11 a.m. This latest news follows another day of confusion unfolding at the court complex today. Now, it was expected that Bankman-Fried would return to court today, but that did not happen. His attorney, Jerome Roberts, told other news media yesterday that his client has agreed to be extradited to the United States. In court Monday, Bankman-Fried was expected to waive his right to extradition, but his attorney expressed shock to learn that his client was in court and still not behind bars. Now, while at court today, officials from the U.S. Embassy and attorneys for the former crypto billionaire all attended, but the court never convened. Embassy officials soon left, followed by his attorneys a few minutes later. Now, we sought to get an update from the lead attorney, but he refused to talk.
Mr. Roberts, any comments from you today? You spoke to some other press yesterday. Can you tell us what the next steps are?
Should we say Merry Christmas or will we see you again?
Now, the arrest and subsequent court hearings of former FTX CEO Sam Bankman-Fried has drawn the interest of the international press. Nearly a dozen media teams have descended on New Providence to cover the international case. Bethany McDermott spoke with some of them and filed this report. Well, we will have that report from Bethany later on in the newscast. While an argument ended with a man being seriously injured after he reportedly jumped from a moving vehicle, police are labeling the incident, which occurred shortly after 7 p.m. on Sunday, as suspicious. While details are sketchy, here's what we know. The victim was riding in a gray Toyota vehicle in the area of Joe Farrington Road when the victim, who was a front seat passenger, allegedly jumped from the vehicle following an argument. The victim was transported to hospital via EMS personnel, where he remains in critical condition. A 44-year-old female is assisting police with this investigation. The Davis administration will move to aggressively build airports on 5 islands, including Long Island and Cat Island, according to Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Aviation Chester Cooper. Cooper telling reporters it will not take 3 years for those airports to be built.
We, the government, spent 3.5 years to complete Great Harbor Key. What I will commit to telling you is that it will not take us 3.5 years to build the airport. So we expect that this is going to be an aggressive process.
Cooper said each airport will be built to suit the demand and culture of the islands. The Davis administration has committed to spreading investments throughout the island, and when asked for a timeline on these airports, Cooper said this.
We got to make an announcement on all of that soon. We're going to lay out the time frame. I want to be very deliberate when I talk about time frames. But I can tell you that I've given you all of the priority airports on the list of all of the aggressive infrastructural aviation development that we are going to do.
We can feel much cooler temperatures in the nation's capital this evening. Meteorologist Greg Thompson is in the Weather Center with more. Good evening, Greg.
Thanks, Italia, and welcome everybody for our first check on weather on this second half of our newscast Tuesday. It's pretty nice out there, and we are starting to see those Christmas time temperatures. Very comfortable, 77 degrees, but we have a lot of clouds out there and some spotty isolated showers nearby. Your winds are very strong, out of the east at 50 miles per hour, and your field slight temperature a very comfortable 74 degrees. On our satellite, low pressure system, broad area, bringing a lot of moisture across the Florida area, and we do have a very stationary, weakening front across the central Bahamas still, and that is going to actually lift back towards north, keeping unsettled weather across the northwest Bahamas. So we're looking at increasing showers and thunderstorm activity tonight as the system pulls towards the east, looking for the possibility for some flooding as these showers will be locally heavy, thunderstorms will be strong to severe. So we're asking you residents in the northwest Bahamas continue to watch the system as it moves across the area and take the necessary precautions to protect your life and property. That's your first look at weather. Stick with us. Your extended forecast is still to come.
Still to come on Our News, come be our guest as the holidays approach. Bahamas gets ready to host. We'll tell you about their plans to host holiday visitors. And if you haven't fully vaccinated your kids yet, you may want to watch the story and meet the face behind the brand. Eyes a Bahamian boy brand. That's all coming up when Our News returns. Now to that story we promised you about the interests of the international press covering the extradition case of Sam Bankman-Fried, with nearly a dozen media teams descending on New Providence. Bethany McDermott spoke with some of them.
Maria Alejandra Cardona is a video journalist with Reuters who is stationed in Miami, Florida.
It was really easy. The minute he got arrested, it was, Maria, can you go to the Bahamas?
Patrick Ottman is CNN's Havana-based correspondent. He says by now he thought proceedings would have already been wrapped up.
I arrived here late Sunday expecting that Monday we would have a court hearing and extradition. There would be some determination made because, of course, while this is the end perhaps for the Bahamas, it's really only the beginning of the legal case in the United States.
Ottman says there's an intense amount of interest in the United States for this story, adding that working from here requires a shift in thinking.
There's a different court system here, it's a slightly different pace of doing things. So people are, I think, getting used to that. You know, usually you say there's going to be a court hearing at 10 a.m. and people expect, oh, it'll be at 10 and over at 10:15 and we'll have a decision. And so, you know, anytime you report from a different country, you kind of have to change your mentality a little bit. You kind of have to learn the way things are done there. And so that's really no different here.
Sam Bankman-Fried was arrested last week and appeared before the magistrate's court, where he was denied bail and remanded to the Bahamas Department of Corrections. From then, international media were all here getting the story. But how has it been mixing with the local media corps?
The local press is fantastic, and I've been reading a lot of your guys' things for years, and it's nice to finally have a face to go with a name because I cover the Caribbean, so I read Bahamian news almost every day. And so it's been very helpful to get some of the nuances of what's happening.
The Bahamian media has been such a godsend. I mean, all of you guys have been so valuable to us. You know, we come to you for our inside, you know, what's going on, have you heard anything? And everyone has been so nice.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Bethany McDermott.
Thanks, Bethany. While the country continues to experience a rebound in the tourism sector, Bahamas Resort benefiting from the influx of visitors this holiday season. Our Joshua Williams reports.
Bahamas receiving the gift of full capacity this holiday season as visitors flock to the resort. Senior Vice President of Government Affairs Robert Sands says bookings for the holiday exceeds 93%.
The bookings for festive season are very strong, and we are very encouraged by the bookings over this period. I can also report that many hotels in New Providence are also looking at very strong bookings for this period as well. But it doesn't stop there. Bookings for the first quarter also in New Providence are very strong. So we're looking forward to perhaps a historical year in terms of visitor arrivals to the Bahamas in 2023.
Last week, Tourism and Aviation Investments Minister Chester Cooper said he anticipates tourism arrivals for next year will be the best the country has ever seen. Cooper cited the fact that forward bookings for the first half of 2023 are already showing promising signs. Sands credits the strength of the Bahamas as a brand for the uptick in guests.
I think it speaks to the strength of the Bahamas brand It speaks to the strength of the type of resorts and the quality resorts we have in the Bahamas, and certainly Bahamas is contributing to that. It also speaks to the resilience of tourism in our country and the opportunities that will avail themselves in the new year.
Reporting for our news, I'm Joshua Williams.
With this being the flu season, a local pediatrician is pushing the importance of vaccinating your children. And despite the negative reports surrounding vaccines, Dr. Carlos Thomas says there are a lot of benefits that parents should consider.
As we're all aware, we're going through a very already busy flu season. Many of us have heard of RSV, and there are many other viruses that are more common around this time of the year. As a pediatrician, I strongly encourage and recommend and advise that parents get their children vaccinated against the routine vaccines that we're all aware of.
He's asking parents to consider the COVID-19 vaccine and the flu vaccine.
For children 6 months of age and older, because as you are aware, these infections target everyone, but particularly those at the extreme of ages, so the very elderly and the very young, because their immune systems are not ideal, they're at risk for having serious infections. So we strongly encourage that you seek medical attention in your doctor's office, at the government clinics, to get your child vaccinated against influenza.
And if you are concerned about vaccine safety,
the vaccines are safe. They have many decades of history, and the impact of vaccines is clear. In jurisdictions where the vaccine rates are higher, there are less infections. One of my concerns as a doctor is that our compliance with vaccines over the last decade has been slowly decreasing. So in the past, we used to boast over 95% of our children who are vaccinated, and now it's lower. And the concern is the lower the vaccine rate, the greater the chance of emergence of diseases.
It's now time for tonight's Financial Market Minute, brought to you by RF, your local investment bank. This has been your Financial Market Minute. To explore the best performing mutual funds in the Bahamas, visit our website at www.rfgroup.com.
when our news comes back from the break, find out how this lady took a popular saying to a best-selling brand.
Well, DeAndre Ayton and the Phoenix Suns in action against the Los Angeles Lakers. Turns out they didn't have their best player, but didn't matter because DeAndre Ayton more than adequate to lead the way. He helps the Suns get a big win. We'll give you details on that coming up in sports.
This is our news. Welcome back. A group of young men and women graduating from the 2022 Fall Youth Leader Certification Program in Grand Bahama. The classes began in October and focused on youth development. Minister of Youth, Sports and Culture, Mario Boleg, congratulating the group, while head of the Youth Division, Sandina Neely, left some encouraging words with the class.
You have enjoyed 14 intense weeks, I was advised, of training. Sacrifice time and energy and countless study hours, as well as hard working and dedication, have brought you to this point. You have a reason to celebrate.
talking about language and how our language must change as we deal with the modern age of young people. And youth development is always evolving, so we want to exercise more leverage and latitude, and we want to decrease the margins and remove all the stigmas from around our young people. And then I encourage them to lean in. You know, that's a new age term that started around 2013, and we want them to embrace more fully as youth leaders all the work that they have to do.
Youth Officer Dr. Kenneth Miller says the certification program is open to the general public.
It's simple to enroll in the program as filling out one of our forms and also having a government-issued ID and a simple biography about yourself so that we could understand where your passion for youth development came from. Our earliest intention is to have the Youth Leader Certification hosted again in the early part of February, late part of January. Our goal is to create the Grand Bahama Youth Leaders Network from these recent cohorts and then make an inclusion of all of the other ones that preceded them.
Heyman DeAndre Ayton leading the way as the Suns take down the Lakers. Meanwhile, local basketball action continuing at the AF Adderley Gym. Here's Marcellus Hall with a check on sports. Marcellus.
All right, thanks, Natalia. Welcome to our sports, everybody. I'm Marcellus Hall. Last night, DeAndre Ayton and his Phoenix Suns taken to the floor against the Los Angeles Lakers. They were playing at home, and they didn't have good hospitality because they destroyed the LA Lakers big time. Let's give you some details. Let's take a look. Right. DeAndre Ayton and the Phoenix Suns in action last night, taking on the LA Lakers. This one a little bit lopsided because the Lakers without two of their top players, LeBron James and DeAndre Ayton, sitting this one out. Suns defense, they did have Devin Booker out as well. Didn't matter. 130-104 ends up being the final score. Chris Paul, season high 28 points, but how about our guy DeAndre? He played a pretty solid night as well. Taken to the floor for a total of 25 minutes, finishes up with 21 points, 11 rebounds, and a block. Like we said, most importantly, Suns do get the win. And then the next matchup, in case you're wondering, comes your way at, actually tonight, they take on the Washington Wizards. Meanwhile, New Providence Basketball Association, 2 games being played last night over at the AF Valley Gym. Starting you off with the Division II game, the Rebels and the Your Essential Store Giants. Giants are defending champions. They showed it. They got the win here, 111-61. A blowout fashion victory for them. They continue their run through the regular season. As for Division I, Discount Distributors Liquors Rockets, they took on the Tucker Boys. And again, same situation here. Rockets get the win, 99-56 ends up being your final. New Providence Basketball Association League action will continue later on this week. And that's your look at sports here on this Tuesday. I'm Marcellus Hall. Back to you, Italia.
Still ahead on our news tonight, I'm sure you've heard the saying, eyes of a hanging bay. Well, we'll meet the face behind it and how she's managing to keep it going despite the odds. And what's up with all the weather we're having? Greg will have the answers in our extended weather forecast. That's coming up when our news returns. Welcome back to Our News. It's time now for your extended weather forecast. Joining us again from the Weather Center is meteorologist Greg Thompson. Good evening again, Greg.
Thanks again, Natalia, and welcome back, everybody, for our final check on weather. We are watching a low-pressure system in the Gulf of Mexico. Lots of showers and thunderstorms associated with that system will be tracking across Florida later on tonight. Should move into the northwest Bahamas early tomorrow morning, and we're looking at showers and thunderstorms. Some of those showers will be locally heavy, and there could be the possibility for some flooding across portions of the northwest Bahamas. Also, thunderstorms will be strong to severe, so we're asking you boaters to remain very near port, as these showers are going to generate some very strong winds and some limited visibility across the northwest Bahamas. There's also a trailing weakening front across the central Bahamas. Both of those will combine to keep an unsettled weather pattern across the northwest and portions of the central Bahamas tonight through tomorrow, and eventually this system will exit the area. But a frontal boundary is expected to get across our area sometime Friday. That one will usher in a very nice change in our atmosphere and our weather. We're looking at for some very cold weather for the northwest Bahamas as that cold air starts to bleed in across the northwest Bahamas. So the weekend and into Christmas looking chilly, and I know you Junkanoo guys like that kind of weather, so prepare for it. Could see some sweater weather, some jacket weather, so make sure you dress accordingly. Future forecast showing the system moving across Florida, as I mentioned, by tonight and into early tomorrow. By 9 a.m. most of the activity should be to the east of the island, but we will still have some trailing moisture moving across our area, and that system will continue to track out towards the east, and then we expect the remnants of what is left of the cold front behind that to be moving across us by late Thursday and into Friday, and once again that should be ushering a nice change in our atmosphere for the weekend. Boating forecast, small craft caution remains in effect for the northwest Bahamas. Rip current risk is high. East to southeasterly winds ahead of that front and that low pressure system, but once the low goes through, the winds will switch out of the southwest 15 to 20 knots. They will be gusting at times. Seas will be running 4 to 6 feet over the ocean, and they will be up to 8 feet in some swells still out there. Your low tide will be at 11:04 tonight for the central and southeast Bahamas. Caution flag in place for you guys down there as well. East to southeasterly winds not as strong, 10 to 15 knots, but those swells are going to be significant. Seas running 2 to 4 feet, but up to 6 feet in those swells. Here's a look now at your national forecast. In your 7-day planner, showers and thunderstorms in the forecast tomorrow. We have a break in the activity on Thursday, and then another front moving through us by Friday. And look at those temperatures. We're looking at mid-70s for the weekend, and Sunday is when we see that really strong, significant input of some cold air mass. So temperatures possibly not even making it out of the low 70s, upper 60s, and those temperatures at night will be very chilly. That's a look at our weather. Make it a safe night, everybody.
All right, Greg, thanks so much, and I'm so happy that you spoke with the man above about those cooler temperatures just in time for Christmas. Well, an all-Bahamian Christmas pop-up market was held over the weekend, and out of the 50-plus vendors, more than 90% were women. We spoke to the event's organizer about the challenges of being a woman with a business. Our Sasha Lightborn has the story.
When Cache Knowles birthed the Eyes of Bahamian Bay brand back in 2019, she never thought it would grow as quickly as it has. She took her passion for Bahamian culture and meshed it with retail. Now, the brand has grown by leaps and bounds, but she says it's not easy, and she, along with other female entrepreneurs, struggle daily with keeping on top of their businesses.
I always reflect on what is the difficulty of running this business and figuring out where to go. And I think the big part is sort of believing that I could do it. I feel like women sort of shy away from just doing it and believing that they have the ability and the capacity to do it.
She also admitted to sometimes getting in her own way.
So a lot of times I am my biggest roadblock, which is Kesha, you can't do this pop-up market. It will be successful. Just lean into it. And so sometimes I find myself fighting, don't do it, it's too much. Because I don't have that mindset.
Out of the 56 vendors at Knowles' pop-up this past weekend, 52 were women.
And I feel like women don't usually get encouraged to be in these boss roles, and that's why I even did post about this 52 women here out of 56 vendors. 52 are women, and that's huge. It's wow, women are stepping up and saying, yes, I want to own this business. Yes, I want to promote this business. Yes, I try to make that money.
Reporting for our news, I'm Sasha Lightborn.
All right, Sasha, thank you. Such a motivational story. Well, thank you for joining us for our news tonight. Remember, you can catch our live coverage of the Boxing and New Year's Day Junkanoo parades, both beginning at midnight right here on our TV. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Natalia Hall. We'll see you tomorrow night. Have a beautiful evening.